Thank you for joining us today on 10 Minutes with the Artist, an episodic series that explores the art practice and the personal vision that guides artists. On today's episode, we're very proud to have Taylor Moran, who exhibited recent works from her series Living Water Within at the 2017 Baccalaureate Exhibition at North Dakota State University. Living Water Within is a collection of narrative paintings that examine the artist's experience with God through water imagery and portraiture. Taylor's paintings are rich with the mysteries of absence and abundance, biblical references, and a highly relatable story that touches on experience, relationships, and identity during the very personal search for meaning and fulfillment. I'm Anthony Ferris, and this is 10 Minutes with the Artist. Taylor, thank you so very much for joining us on 10 Minutes with the Artist. So, there's truth, at least on our planet, that water begets life. But you appear to use it more as like a reference to sort of spirituality. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the origins of this.
Yeah, so a lot of time, my work references the Christian faith a lot, and so in the Bible, water is used a lot just to help explain sort of these mysteries of God and sort of bring them in to a more relatable context for humans. And I chose to use water because it is a necessity to humans, and it is something that brings life and something we depend on. And so a lot of times people think of spirituality as sort of like unneeded fluff. And so I wanted to bring it into that context of being life-giving and something that we do actually need. So that was the purpose behind using water as a metaphor.
Can you maybe tell me an example or two of water being used in the Bible?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so one of my favorite verses is Psalm 42, and it says, "As a deer pants for water, so my soul thirsts for you, God." So I think that's really, really a striking metaphor. If you think of a time that you were thirsty and all that you wanted was that drink of water. So that's sort of a cool way to think about God.
Yeah. How is narrative important to how people experience your work?
I'm always drawn to just hearing people's stories and hearing about their life in a very personal way. And so I think when I wanted to approach faith as a topic, it can be kind of a hard thing to understand or present. So I wanted to go about it in a very personal way and tell people my story. And so I thought that self-portraiture and narrative would be a good route to go.
Okay. And people read the read this as like a progression of a narrative, sort of like a Bible story or like some sort of parable, or do they? How do they usually experience your work?
I think yeah, a progression is usually how people see it. So that's one way the viewer can interact with it. But for me personally, there are like the beginning one I think should usually stay at the beginning. But some of the ones in the middle I think can be interchanged because it's not like this perfect journey that I've like been through and it always happens in this order. I think like throughout my life, for example, the one in the middle of just showing being overwhelmed and like not really having it. I think I've experienced that like many times. So it's for me, it's always like I'm going back to I kind of bounce around within each piece. So I look at it not so much as this clear, distinct journey, but if the viewer sees it like that, that's cool too.
Yeah, the way that you have it arranged, it's hopeful. But I was thinking that there may be some people who come in to view your work and they may get to the third painting
and be overwhelmed by water, and just stay there and not have any other place to go. And so they may view your works, your pieces, not as a series per se, but as a collection of individual works that they can relate to. So I really like that you allow and you encourage people to view them in that sort of interchangeable way. Your works appear to be realistic in a manner, but then there's often these surreal experiences that the figure is becoming a part of. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you choose to represent these places, circumstances.
So I wanted to start with a more realistic approach so people could right away know sort of what the subject is and what they're dealing with. But then I wanted to add a piece of surrealism because I think it's impossible to perfectly describe God or spirituality in the confines of what we see and know. So I wanted to sort of add that mystery and stretch that for the viewer so that they could sort of imagine and that it would open that door in their mind a little bit.
What piece do you think does that very subtly, and what piece do you think does that very dramatically?
So subtly, I think the one with the hand dipping in the water, titled Forgiveness, I think you don't really notice it right away, but there's no sort of dirt in the water after the hand comes out. So that'd be sort of a subtle way that I did it. And then in the fourth piece, Peace at High Tide, the water's sweeping over the figure like a blanket, and the water wouldn't usually do that. So that one's more overt.
Okay. What do you think that the sort of general mood of your work is?
I think generally it's serene. And when I think of water, I think of just sitting by the ocean or a lake and just being taken away. So that's how I feel about it. Serene and hopeful, I think.
And how did scale sort of figure into this idea of storytelling?
Well, my painting teacher always says, go big or go home. So I haven't done a small painting in so long. So that's kind of just where it started. But I also just enjoy the fact that the painting confronts the viewer and you can't really not see it. And I don't know, I think just having more space gives the viewer time to just contemplate and sit in front of it a little more instead of just going up and examining a littler painting.
Yeah. Well, at the end of our program, we like to ask a couple of questions about your creative practice. So I was curious what time of day you feel like you're most creative?
Probably in the morning. Definitely a morning person. So I like to get up early and eat a good breakfast and go paint before everyone's at the studio. So I enjoy the quiet a lot.
And do you listen to music or anything like that when you're making your work?
If I get there in the morning and there's no sound, then I'll just paint in the quiet. But if it's during the day and there's people around, then I usually have some classical music or whatever on.
Okay. And is there anything that you're reading right now?
I wish I were reading something, but I don't know. Summer's coming around, so I'm hopeful. Find a good book.
Yeah.
But yeah, not at the moment.
And what do you think that the most challenging thing is about working in your medium?
Oh, man. Challenging thing. I don't know. I can't think of anything right now. I think just waiting for... It takes a while, so waiting for underlayers to dry before you can go over it again, and it's just, yeah, it's complex.
Yeah. And then how do you know that you're finished with a piece of work?
I don't know, I kind of just have that feeling that when I step away from it and leave it for a few days and come back to it and I'm still have a good feeling about it, then I usually think I'm done and ask a few opinions from people that I trust, and if they have anything to add, I take that into consideration and go from there.
Yeah. And then if you had to use any other medium besides the one that you're using, what do you think that you would use?
Probably just drawing, or like charcoal and graphite. I don't know.
Okay. And then I guess my last question for you would be, what's next?
What's next? Well, in the fall, I'll be student teaching for art education at an elementary and a middle school. And then after that, hopefully continuing to teach art and continuing to do my own art on the side. So
Yeah, I hope so.
yeah.
So I'd like to thank you, Taylor, for joining us today on 10 Minutes with the Artist, and I'd like to thank you all for your time and your interest in professional practice and creative explorations happening here at North Dakota State University. So thank you, and for everyone here at the Memorial Union Gallery, keep creative.